It's Friday, June 12th, 2020. This is the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Now, Matt Morgan's out tonight, but you got Friday Night Raj and Glenn W.O. taking you through Friday Night SmackDown, the ups, the downs, something that's beneath the downs. Raj, hell of a show tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that AJ versus Daniel Bryan match, I know they taped it a couple weeks ago. They didn't tape it when the rest of the show was taped.
Oh.
They taped it the week before that. My guess is probably Daniel Bryan has time off, so that's why they did it earlier. But I don't know why they didn't just tape it for the pay-per-view. I mean, they already taped Randy Orton versus Edge. They could have just taped that for Backlash as well. That match was awesome, and it would have been that much better without commercials.
I think it would have upstaged Randy and Edge, and the greatest wrestling match of all time.
Maybe that's why they didn't do it. Maybe they didn't want the greatest wrestling match to be upstaged by a really good wrestling match.
Which should tell you something about Backlash on Sunday. Like, it's going to be good, but just know that Randy versus Edge is going to be the best, and everything else, temper your expectations.
Right. Yeah.
It's a way to sell a pay-per-view. So tonight, the first segment, good Lord. Sheamus versus Jeff Hardy. They were having a contract signing for the match. They come out to the ring. Sheamus is setting up this black box. Why is he there? He's like, "Oh, Renee, I don't want you to have to see some things." And Jeff, you're gonna take a urine test right here, right now, to prove that you're clean before this match. And I don't know. I think it was when we saw like the novelty-sized cup of urine that it was pretty obvious that this was going to end up all over Sheamus.
Yeah, I mean that was like a 40. It was like a bomber that he had. It was a little too ridiculous. I get the effect that they were going for, and this was a segment that they had retaped or they had stopped, and Vince McMahon came out and ordered, and then went to the hard cam side and then personally produced it. So I could see one of the things that they wanted to do that Vince probably had a problem with was not enough piss.
I mean, who hasn't just produced when they really need to go? It was something, man. I mean, we did find out the test was negative later. Yes. So I don't know. I want to be enthusiastic about the show, but when you've got a man throwing a cup of urine in another man's face, it's really kind of calling your shot for the state of modern wrestling.
Yeah. They did this angle, a similar angle with Shawn Michaels.
HBK.
Yeah. Years ago. So there is precedence for peeing in the ring. Vince McMahon has peed in the ring as well. So it's nothing new, I guess.
Well, and in fact, this was comeuppance for Sheamus because he stood there laughing when Drake Maverick wet his pants when the Bar faced AOP at Survivor Series back in 2018. So there you go, Sheamus.
Yeah, Justin Lopez with the $5 super chat. Thank you, Justin, saying that match was too damn good. So good, in fact, that I checked out after it. It was a crime that it didn't main event. And this is one of those things. I understand why they didn't put it in the main event, because you want to build the pay-per-view, but they never do that anymore anyway. So just have the best match finish out the show, and I think it would have went out with a bang than on a whimper like it did.
Well, and it's crazy that they had that Jeff Hardy Sheamus segment, which, by the way, Wrestling Twitter, that's all they were talking about. Following that up with the New Day versus Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura, these guys went out there, put on a great non-title tag match with Shinsuke and Cesaro picking up a win. At the beginning, New Day doing taking a knee and kneeling in the middle of the ring, raising their fists on the air. In support and solidarity with Black Lives Matter. They had some victims of police violence, their names on their armbands. I mean, it was a very powerful moment. It's crazy that this didn't open the show, and this had to go in the aftermath of that Jeff Hardy Sheamus spot.
Yeah, I mean, the contrast between a lot of these segments was pretty immense. Really cool. Especially for the New Day. I'd like to see. I was gonna say it would just be cool to see other races do it as well.
I agree, and they have been on Twitter certainly. Right. Did you watch New Day's podcast or see the clips that were making?
I haven't. I'm gonna listen to it this weekend. I've heard it's pretty amazing.
Exceptionally powerful, and I feel like Yeah, I feel like this was really some of those segments. They were on FS1 on Tuesday night, but I feel like some of them should have been shown on the air. I thought that statement was so powerful. It's just, the ordering of things tonight. I really think it's not that tonight was even a bad show necessarily. I just think they could have opened up with New Day, closed with AJ versus Daniel, and then spaced everything out, paced it a little better in between. But this was very, for lack of a better word, schizophrenic in the way that it was just all over the place with the tone of the show tonight.
Yeah. We'll get more of these super chats tonight since it's the two of us, so we'll probably go a lot faster. Joseph Vendetti saying, via the ring, new pay-per-view. Ha ha ha, I chuckled. Yeah, I agree with you. To your point, if you had done it the other way, the way you said, with New Day at the beginning, AJ at the end, it's a different show.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is Bruce Pritchard. We'll talk about that more later. But
should we talk about that now? I mean, come on, Raj. Let's not bury the lead here.
Sure. Well, why don't we get to the next match and then we'll go to Bruce Pritchard. But real quick, my problem with the New Day match is every tag team feud with the champions is done this way, where they lose a non-title match and then you have a title match, or they lose a singles match and that leads to the title match. They do the formula every single time. I'd like to see more of a story, something new, something different once in a while.
Yeah. So when are they wrestling again? That's not a Backlash, is it?
I could see them, announcing it, as a pre-show match or something, because they haven't announced any kickoff matches yet. Backlash is one of those pay-per-views where outside of Edge versus Orton, I have to just constantly remind myself what else is on that show.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like we were talking about earlier, sorry, I'm apparently having some bandwidth issues tonight, so I'm lowering my resolution, hoping that will help a little bit.
You sound fine.
Well, that's important for the audio listeners, but Raj, there are hundreds of people in the Wrestling Inc. chat room watching us live right now, and I know they want to be able to see me in all my glory here on a Friday night SmackDown. What are you drinking tonight, Raj?
I am having some some Pinot Grigio. I missed working out all week, so I worked out during SmackDown, and so I'm trying to have something lighter tonight. So what do you got?
I'm drinking Corona Light.
There you go, healthy.
Kind of. I mean, I tried that new Corona Ultra, whatever, the lower carb one. It's literally like 9 calories less than a Corona Light and tastes somehow heavier. Have you ever had any of the like Michelob Ultra or any of the like low carb beers?
I mean, just the light beers like Miller Lite, but not
not the
gimmick.
Yeah, the low carb ones. There's something they use as a replacement of that actually to me tastes heavier than a light beer. But I've always been a fan of light beer. I mean, I like this. I like Session. I like even Bud Light with lime. Just something that I almost like beer soda is almost my preference for beer. I don't like a heavy lager.
All right. Well, anyone in the chat, if you got a glass or some water or anything. Cheers, and here we go. Here we go. Cheers.
Gonna get taken down by YouTube.
A Corona, isn't it a little soon? A little soon for that?
I thought it was subliminal marketing in a way, right? Because I said to my wife a month into lockdown, why am I just thinking about drinking like a Corona all the time when it got warm out? This is my warm weather beer. It's what I like, and I don't drink very often. But for some reason, when it's hot out, just an ice cold Corona sounds very good. I just want to do that, sit in front of the fan, and watch some wrestling.
Yeah. Well, should we go ahead and talk about Heyman?
Oh, you want to talk about the news now?
Oh no. Well, let's go through the show and then we'll get to the news.
Okay, so backstage, 50 Shades of Otis, him with the blindfold on, spelling food, trying to heighten his senses. And I have to admit, I like the joke that Mandy kissed him and he thought it was Tucker. It was cute, his response to that. I mean, Otis and Mandy are the stars of the show, right? I mean, Otis, I feel like, gets more consistent airtime and more story than anyone else on SmackDown week in and week out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting when crowds come back, I'm guessing he'll just blow the roof off the place because online you just hear, people love him right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's entertaining. I think it's winning me over more and more as it goes on. And that Fast Times at Ridgemont High vignette they did a few weeks ago, I think, is one of the more genuinely funny things WWE has done in a long time.
Yeah, I do think the longer they're doing this with no crowd, the more I don't know. It's just the act is wearing a little thin. Whereas I think it'll work great in front of a crowd. So, hopefully sooner than later they can start doing something, safely. Obviously I don't want them to do something irresponsibly, but
it's interesting though, isn't it? I mean, we're hearing political rallies are starting again.
yeah,
Local ordinances.
The national convention is going to be in Jacksonville.
Yeah, local ordinances, or in some cases rejecting face masks, like in Orange County, famously in the last couple of days, even as cases are going up in in many areas throughout the country. But we're not seeing a rush to live events. In fact, in the last few weeks, specifically in the last 2 weeks, I've actually gotten emails saying like, "Oh no, this thing we thought we were going to postpone to October, now it's just canceled." So I wonder if it's a talent concern. I wonder what it is, because I'm actually surprised that the live event business, I mean, Vegas is back.
Right.
But we're not hearing about live events.
Yeah, not even NASCAR, where you could easily spread people out in those arenas. And that's all it is, right? It's just the fans. I mean, they already got all the race car drivers out there, and same as wrestling. So it's just the fans. I don't know if it's a liability issue or what, but the closest thing we've seen to fans has been AEW and then just now WWE.
Well, I'll tell you. So what I think it is I think that Vegas, I mean, we've even seen this here locally with restaurants where someone in an employee's household tested positive and then the restaurant shuts down. I think that they don't want to go through the whole rigmarole of selling tickets to something, having people plan for something, because they can't stop. Like, they can't stop on a dime again and just say, "Oh no, we're canceling it, we're refunding it, we're postponing it." I think that's why I think right now even Vegas knows that they could shut down tomorrow if they had to.
That's possible.
I mean, because, well, it's the venues, right? And I have a feeling, based on what we saw with WrestleMania weekend, companies like Evolve, who we'll talk about later, stuff like WrestleCon, people that lost money or had to aggressively try and get out of some of their contracts. I bet you now more than ever, venues are putting into their contracts language that will leave people on the hook and not be able to just say force majeure, act of God, we need to get out of this.
Yeah.
We'll
see. I mean, it seems like people are more and more defiant about not closing down once they've opened back up. But, again, everything is take it as it comes.
Yeah. So, Bernie DC is saying there's supposed to be 1,000 fans in Miami for NASCAR Sunday, special guest, and 5,000 fans at Talladega next week for NASCAR as well. So,
there you go. I had missed that. I don't really
NASCAR.
I don't follow NASCAR. I don't follow most sports, actually.
Really?
I did football and MMA.
Then you're just really into wrestling and golf.
And golf, yes.
Yeah. NASCAR, of course, making news this week, banning the Confederate flag at their events. That'll be interesting to see if that actually has an impact on their attendance. I think people, for the short term, are just going to be happy that they can go to sporting events again. But with NASCAR, there's probably also less risk because the drivers are in cars. They're moving so fast. There's a lot of space.
Well, let's ask people in the chat if WWE or AEW, your favorite wrestling promotion, opens up and they come to your town with a loaded card, and they have social distancing, and they ask that you to wear a mask, would you go? Let's see what people say.
And it was an event. Well, here's the question: is it an event you can watch on TV or not? Because that's the difference with most concerts.
I'd say it is, but it's special.
Yeah,
it's like a pay-per-view, like a SummerSlam or a Revolution, or All Out, something like that.
See, I think if you could watch it on TV, that's the kicker, right? Because for WWE, I mean, wasn't a big portion of their touring revenue just those random live events that they made profitable, even though they weren't televised?
No, they were losing money on the live events.
Really?
They've been losing money for a couple of years now on the live events.
Oh man, I mean, I went to back when SmackDown was touring on Mondays, opposite Raw. I went to a SmackDown live event in Stockton, California, that barely filled up. I've seen bigger crowds in high school gymnasiums for basketball games than we're at a Monday night SmackDown.
Yeah, Let's look at some of these answers. Michael Virus saying yes. Sandesh, AEW for sure he would. Hydro Cash, I'm going to AEW only. Malvin saying AEW can do 50% capacity now. In theory, they haven't yet. Fernando saying he'd go. A lot of no's. Mr. Pill, Joey Jordan, Jewel Slinger, Donald Lebanese saying absolutely. Bellini saying he would. I saw it first saying, sorry, Raj, I can't take the chance with my family's life. No, the overachiever. So kind of a mixed bag.
I like
no way.
My Life in the Knife Trade saying, sure, I'd go to AEW. The likelihood of me dying from COVID isn't likely at all. My Life in the Knife Trade, don't you believe in a thing called like ironic foreshadowing? That's why you don't make statements like that.
Yeah. It's like in Scream where you never say, I'll be right back.
Yeah, seriously. I think it'll be interesting to see how it's back, and I think the next couple weeks are going to be critical. I've seen a lot of people speculating now that, like, almost we're in a covert herd immunity plan. Like, we're not calling it that, but that's really what's going on right now. People that want to stay home, stay at home. But if they're not going to take action on a grand scale, and I don't know how they could ever again do another lockdown, but we'll see. It's going to be we're at a very, very, very interesting time in human history.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles for the WWE vacant Intercontinental Championship. This match went 3 or 4 segments tonight.
Yeah. For a second, I was like, is there anything else on this show, or is this going to go the rest of the show? Because these guys could do it. I
thought Sami Zayn was going to show up, cause a DQ, and then triple threat Sunday at Backlash. Why was this on free TV?
Well, I mean, I think part of it was, like I said, they had taped it a couple weeks ago. I think it has something to do with Daniel Bryan taking some time off. Bree's pregnant, so that would be my guess, and that's purely a guess. But that's the only thing that makes sense to me why they would tape it on a different week than the rest of the show.
Speaking of Bree pregnant, Total Bellas beat AEW and NXT this week in the ratings.
Yeah. AEW and NXT, we'll get to that later. They both did terrible.
Yeah.
AEW worse because from what they've been doing. They're the lows, all-time lows. But, not a good week for anyone. Raw, SmackDown, all really bad this week.
And did we ever find out an exact number for the Backlash or the Evolution re-airing on FS1? I know.
No, because it didn't crack the top 150. So unless Fox sends it out, we don't get it.
Well, and some people were trying to grandstand saying, there shows there's no interest in women's wrestling. And it's like, yeah, idiot. WrestleMania 3, WrestleMania 31 on FS1 also didn't break the top 150.
Right, yeah.
That's not indicative of anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the first couple weeks they did it. It did do well. But like anything, after a while, it loses its novelty. Yeah.
Cream Pie saying Brie and Nikki outdrawing the Elite and Undisputed Era. There's something to that. There's something to that, man.
Yeah, Joseph Benditti, thank you for the $10 super chat saying the IC title video package was awesome. Hopefully that's a sign WWE is going all the way with the IC title and making it special like back in the day. I love that package.
Very well
and then Michael Cole kind of killed it when he came back and said, when you talk about the greatness of the Intercontinental Championship, you got to be talking about The Miz. When you're thinking of great Intercontinental champions, The Miz is not the...
He made the title prestigious again, Raj. You're forgetting.
Yeah. And that's no disrespect to The Miz, but come on.
I don't know, man.
Savage, Warrior, Steamboat. I mean, granted, Steamboat only held it a couple months, but still the caliber of athlete and where they went from there and using it as a stepping stone.
Gladly take 4 years ago, The Miz, the Talking Smack promo, his Intercontinental Championship run. Like, that was great. It's weird to have nostalgia for something so recent. I don't find myself sitting there thinking about other things from 2016, like, oh, remember that? But no, with WWE, it's amazing how far we've come since then, and not necessarily for the better.
Yeah, they get tamer and tamer every year as far as authenticity and intensity and things like that. It's,
Saying bring back Ryan Ward and Road Dogg. I don't think Road Dogg wants to do it anymore.
Vince will Vincify it, and we'll talk more about that with Heyman. Yeah,
but this match with AJ and Daniel was absolutely fantastic. Ended with AJ winning and becoming the new Intercontinental Champion. They should re-show this on the pre-show but again, it'll upstage Edge versus Orton. But this was such a good match.
It was awesome.
Top of the game.
In my opinion, this was the best match of the empty arena era, as far as a match, not counting the cinematic stuff, and even with the cinematic, it's probably still the best.
Wow.
In my opinion, yeah. I mean, can you think of anything that's better?
I mean, I really liked both WrestleMania cinematic matches. I thought that was good. The non-cinema stuff, I'm trying to think what's been really great. I know NXT, particularly the women, have had some really good matches. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. It's not the matches right now that are the problem. With WWE, so we've talked about this before, but I get those fan council surveys all the time, and I'm always very clear when filling them out that it's like the in-ring athleticism is the best thing week in and week out on the show. I don't think but that's not drawing eyes, though.
No,
like, that's not
athleticism. It's a dime a dozen right now. You see great matches, for hours every week. Tammy here saying AJ is the top champ on SmackDown right now. Can't take Braun seriously. And I had tweeted this actually earlier. I said I wouldn't mind Braun versus Miz and Morrison if it's a comedy mid-card feud, but as a world title match, it's ridiculous. The build-up. You got slime. When you think of world title matches of the past, and this one you got people getting slimed and the sophomoric stuff. It's just it's asinine for a build-up for a world title match, in my opinion.
Joey Adorjan firing shots. I thought Drew Gulak versus Daniel Bryan was
wow.
Good. That was a really good match as well.
That was really good, but this had the personalities as well. Like both, with that you knew Daniel Bryan was going to win. With this, I figured AJ Styles was going to win because of AJ Styles lost last week, the Raj math. But other than that, it could have gone either way, and they're both former world champions. So just the magnitude of star power in this was much greater. Justin Andrews saying AJ versus Matt Riddle at SummerSlam for the IC title. I think it's too soon. I don't think you should have AJ drop it yet, and you shouldn't beat Matt Riddle yet.
They're hyping it, man. We saw another vignette tonight, so he's going to debut next Friday.
Yeah.
We saw
you can do like Matt Riddle versus Nakamura or something like that, or Cesaro.
I'm sure that'll happen, but that's not. I mean, let me put it this way: if that's Matt Riddle's first feud, that will tell you he's not coming in at the top. He's coming in as a mid-carder.
Well, no one comes in right at the top.
I mean, they have before.
Who?
I'm trying to think. Someone has. Finn Balor did. Finn Balor came in right at the top.
Finn Balor, yeah. Finn Balor was the one because they needed to build a top star because Roman was on that suspension.
So there. I have one example.
Right, you got one. But usually you want to highlight them, show them, and then build them, and then keep taking them up to the next level until they get to the world title picture. If Matt gets over, and the problem right now you're seeing is I think Vince, because you don't have that crowd reaction, you're just seeing people coming in and out of TV so quickly. Like Liv Morgan's, getting a push, then all of a sudden she's missing. You had Bianca Belair there for a bit, then all of a sudden she's missing. Shayna Baszler was getting a push. She's just MIA. Brendan Vink was getting a push for a couple weeks.
I wouldn't really call that a push. Brendan Vink was there, and
they beat Ricochet and Cedric Alexander, and it looked like they were aligning them with MVP.
So Michael the Virus and my channel pointing out Kevin Owens. So that's the question: is Matt Riddle going to be the next Kevin Owens and Finn Balor, or is he going to be the next Bobby Roode and Shinsuke Nakamura?
Well, didn't Kevin Owens? He came in and then he got beat. Like, he beat John Cena right off the bat, and then he got beat right away. And then he was kind of delegated down the card pretty quickly. That's why I think...
Cain Velasquez came in at the top.
Okay, Tyson Fury then. Terry Allen Jr. saying, the PS5 was shown yesterday. Raj, very bold and great design. Will you buy? You going to buy it, Glenn? I mean, you're the
Probably
gamer.
not right away. Well, I'm the gamer. In a past life, sure. Probably not right away, unless there's something that I have to have on it. I mean, Spider-Man was what got me to buy a PS4. I bought an Xbox when they came out. I mean, there's always one game for me that I really want to play because I just don't have time otherwise to just play something start to finish. I want to play more video games, but
I thought when this pandemic hit, I even tweeted out asking for video game suggestions because I thought I was going to have all this free time, but maybe it's been busier than ever. It's been crazy. Justin Lopez, he's hitting the nail right on the head. Ziggler will be his first feud just like everyone else from NXT. You're probably right.
And that's not a good sign.
Well, look, I don't see Matt Riddle in this incarnation going that far, that high up. I don't see him being a world champion.
Let me tell you how we know we're in trouble. Let me know how we'll tell you how we're in trouble. And mark my words on this for next Friday. If Dolph Ziggler comes out and interrupts Matt Riddle and cuts a promo, and in that promo makes a reference to what Matt's smoking or some weed reference, it's all doomed. Like that's going to be Dolph's opening promo against Matt Riddle.
I mean, just history tells you the kind of guys Vince likes. And he's not going to get a Matt Riddle. I bet you, I can tell he's going to find him annoying. And, I could see it. Matt Riddle's not one of those that appeals to everyone. He's not like a cross sports, icon like The Rock or, a lot of the top pro wrestling stars portray themselves like, that could go on a talk show and parents want their kids to look after them. Matt Riddle's not really that guy in this incarnation. If he changed his character up, if he ever down the road turned heel, gets rid of the flip-flops, gets rid of the surfer voice, I could see him being a real
if he's
player.
not himself, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you use elements of your personality, but not...
I'll say this, and maybe this is the booze talk, and I'm going to be a little real here. I'm not a fan of G-Funk, but I think Matt Riddle's theme is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I think G-Funk was just a little, it got a little repetitive with the hip and the hop and the kids and the chronic and the smoking, the doobies.
I still like it.
Really? That's your favorite hip-hop era, though? I mean, think about, you got the old school. Like, I'm talking, Sugar Hill Gang to UTFO, let's say even to Run DMC. Yeah. Then you've got, the Beastie Boys, Slick Rick, Dougie Fresh, up to probably, Vanilla Ice is the next sort of, bookmark of it, right? NWA. But then you've got the Chronic that came out and changed everything, that first early era of gangster rap.
Yeah, I love that era with Tupac, Dre, Biggie, and then you also had the underground stuff with Mos Def and Talib Kweli and Tribe Called Quest.
That was a little later, though. That was later 90s.
That was 2 years, yeah.
Sort of that was the second half of the gangster rap. I'm talking 93. In 93, all of hip-hop sounded like Matt Riddle's theme.
I love that year for hip-hop, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I love the Eminem Dre years and Jay-Z.
Well, that's jumping way ahead to 2000.
I mean, there's a lot of different eras I really like.
True. I'm working on
not a fan of the current era, other than...
The Weeknd, not really hip-hop, but he has done work with Drake. I'm working on a hip-hop playlist that I've been making for months to share with the Wrestling Inc. audience. Yeah. Because it comes up so much on this. I'm just trying to pick the right jams, as it were. Thomas McGoldrick wants to know, where did I buy this shirt? Quality wardrobe craftsmanship. This and the other fine button-down shirt you see me wearing on this podcast, I bought at Kohl's, where all suburbanites shop for their clothing, because we think that Kohl's Cash somehow is somehow we're working the system with the Kohl's Cash.
They suck you in. They suck you in with that Kohl's Cash.
I know, that's how they get you to come back. That and the discounts. And I opened a Kohl's charge card. What the hell's up with that? Because I was I could save 30% more. And I can't figure out, are they ripping me off or am I ripping them off?
You don't even buy anything and you're getting Kohl's Cash. It's oh my God, I gotta go. I gotta go before this up.
I miss shopping at Kohl's, man. I just can't do it online. It's not the same.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna do. When everything opens back up, I'm going to Kohl's. Probably just to buy some more T-shirts, because the only time I wear a button-down shirt now is on this podcast.
There you go.
Don't want to look like a slob more than I naturally do. Anyhow, let's talk. Robbed tonight of seeing that Miz and Morrison music video. We'll talk about that in a moment. Before that, we had the celebration tonight with Sasha Banks and Bayley. Bayley was going to read a poem, but she was so rudely interrupted by Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. And then the Iconics setting up this three-way match for the Women's Tag Team Championship at Backlash. What did you think of this promo segment? And man, again, I want to pour a little liquor out in Matt Morgan's honor, because they were riding that blueprint thing hard tonight with Sasha. Just every time a little piece of me dies inside.
Yeah, I just feel like it's too bad. Because I think Sasha and Bayley, they could have a really kick-ass feud, and these segments just treat them so catty and irritating that. I don't know. They just don't. I just feel like they don't know how to write for these women a lot of times, and I don't know. I just found it annoying.
My wife really doesn't like the Iconics. She finds them very annoying. I've turned a corner. I didn't like them for a long time, and now I think they're hilarious and charming.
I find them good for what they are, but as far as title contenders, I'd rather see building some legitimacy in these tag titles because they haven't had any yet. And I think
the Iconics are in their match to take the pin.
Probably. I agree.
But it's good they're doing something. I mean, they weren't on TV forever.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, I have no problem with the Iconics. I just think I'd like to see a real feud, like going back in the day, like you had with the Bulldogs and the Hart Foundation, something like that for the women's tag division, where it's serious, it's really about the titles, and you have these great matches, and that builds it up. And I that's what I'd like to see.
I feel like the women's tag titles, I don't know. I mean, they're there. They give stakes.
Well, that's somewhat. The thing. Whenever people talk about adding new titles, they're like they should have separate women's tag titles for Raw and SmackDown, or they should have a mixed tag title. It's like every time they add a new title, it means less and less. Like, what
Absolutely.
Does the cruiserweight title mean?
Because it's built-in stakes. So here's my thing, and maybe I'm insane with this, but forget titles. Give me a story. And if you have a story that involves a title, great. But if you have good stories, nobody gives a shit if there's a title involved.
Yeah.
They don't get that.
And if you do have a title in it with the good story, it's that much sweeter.
It is, absolutely. Because we've been talking about this on the podcast about, if they did a women's show, people are like, they just need to add a women's mid-card title. And it's like, no, because then we will literally, that's all it will be for the women, will be the main titles, the mid-card title, and the tag team titles. And that'll be it. We'll get no stories with the women.
Yeah.
We'll just lean on that crutch.
Julian Bravo saying, talk about Tessa Blanchard. I know people like to crap on Charlotte Flair. Could you imagine a Charlotte Flair versus Tessa Blanchard feud? That would just be money.
It'd be good. I still think Charlotte would go over in the end because
it depends.
She's homegrown talent.
Yeah, I mean, again, we'd have to see how Tessa does in that system. But if she gets really over with the crowd, I mean, who knows? I mean, Becky Lynch,
Yeah, they had every chance to sign Tessa.
Well, Tessa has had attitude issues in the past, and she's had issues. I mean, we've seen
there has been some controversy.
It's been pretty public, some of it, and not just people feeling like she was a bully and things like that. So, from all accounts, everything I've heard with people I talked to in Impact, she's changed.
When you talk to Vince Russo to get those Impact scoops. No, I'm kidding. Vince, if you're watching this, I'm kidding. We're kidding. I thought it was just funny that people, like, with everything going on in the last couple days, like, that's a story people are trying to make happen.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot actually going on. That's weird speculation at this point. So, yeah, we'll see what happens on Sunday with those tag titles at Backlash. And then, again, we didn't get to see that Miz and Morrison music video. New Hey Hey one. Like, they were using that 80s VHS filter like crazy, but it was interrupted by Braun Strowman. Let me say this. Tonight with the plexiglass, I don't know what they did with the lighting, but it looked so badass. I don't even know if this was intentional. The reflections on the plexiglass that you could see, like, when Braun was making that entrance. Go back and look at it. Like, it looks really cool. The way that the light was reflecting off that, Braun was reflecting on that. Like, I loved that entrance.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. And real quick for the chat room, there's a few Russo comments. Would you rather have Russo 98 WWF booking, and for those of you watching in 98, where you had the rise of DX and The Rock and Stone Cold, The Undertaker moving to the next level, getting out of that overly gimmicky character, or would you like what you're seeing right now?
This is nothing against Vince Russo, but I right now would prefer the WWE picking a name at random out of the phone book, wrestling fan or not, and having them in charge of creative versus what we see most weeks.
Yeah.
I think we might do better. Maybe someone that's not even a wrestling fan. Seriously. Like, just give me like an 80-year-old woman who just watches soap operas and refers to them as her stories. I think she could do a more interesting job than what we get most Mondays and Fridays.
Michael Byers saying, not a fair comparison. What's not fair? Vince Russo in WWF, with what he was doing with working with Vince in WWF, with Vince as his editor, Vince McMahon, during his whole run in WWF, or what you're seeing now. So, so
my
far
vote's,
it's all 98 Russo.
What's Ryan Ward up to? Is he there still?
I thought he was on Raw now.
Is
But
he?
that was the last I heard. I'm not sure.
His era when he and Road Dogg were in charge of SmackDown was the best. Was the most consistent we've had for Raw or SmackDown in the last 4 years. I still think NXT's on a great. Has been pretty good creatively, especially with the women. But I don't want them to destroy that by taking that person out of there to go to Raw or SmackDown.
Yeah.
So this main event tonight. Man, if you thought AJ versus Daniel Bryan was great, how about Braun Strowman teaming up with Heavy Machinery versus The Miz, John Morrison, and Dolph Ziggler?
What a contrast that was to go from AJ versus Daniel Bryan. You were talking about New Day earlier.
Yeah.
Going from the piss in the face to New Day.
Yeah.
To go from AJ and Daniel Bryan to Braun and the recap of the slime and all that. It's quite the contrast. You got to love WWE.
And what was the backstage thing? Corbin hitting on Mandy Rose?
Yeah. So I mean, they're building Otis and Corbin. So
you know who Corbin's starting to seem kind of like? And I encourage going. I think Corbin needs to be about 25% more Biff Tannen, and I think Corbin will be fantastic.
Get rid of the crown and the king outfit and a little bit more Biff, and you got something there.
Yeah, he almost needs to just play into some of the absurdity of what
have some of the bad puns, make like a tree and get out of here.
Baron Corbin, I love you, and I love the work that you've done, and I think you've come such a long way, but Corbin is almost too sincere sometimes. I think if he played it a little more like he was in on the joke, I think it would work better.
I can see that.
He's playing it a little straight. It's a little more his personality. I think he needs to amplify it and be a little bit, not be afraid to come across a little bit goofier sometimes.
Yeah. Before we get into this last match, let me get some of these Russo answers out of the way, because there are a ton in here. Most people that answered today or 98 Russo are saying 98 Russo. Michael Virus pointing out Vince McMahon is different then and now, and that's the big difference. That is true. Yeah, that is definitely true. Sarah saying, Raj, even Russo can't book like he did in 98. He's changed. He's gone off the deep end. I still think it'd be better than what we got.
Well, the challenge is that almost a lack of experience, and this is nothing against Vince Russo. I like Vince Russo. We've had him on the podcast before. We get along. I think that the work he's done has been great. You don't always agree with his viewpoints, but he's certainly, I'm entertained watching him. But what I'm saying is, I think that the journey and the discovery sometimes is what creates greatness. Look how many filmmakers out there, their first movie. Look at Kevin Smith's a great example. Clerks was great. Mallrats was great. Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And then once he had a sense he knew what he was doing and tried to make Jersey Girl and Tusk and those other films, there's something about talent that's coming up that you're going to get something that's a little more sincere, personal, and passionate, and not as overthought.
Yeah. I do think, I'm not saying Russo in charge of everything, but if you did bring him in as a consultant to work with guys like Drew, work with some of the top guys to help define their character a little bit, I think, I'm not saying head of creative, who knows? But I think in some capacity, he did always try to find a way to enhance talent. It worked in WWF, WCW, it didn't. Yeah. And
in fact, I've been an advocate that I think they need to switch to a Saturday Night Live model of having talent work with producers and writers to just come up with stuff. And then the head of creative is someone that just helps sift through that and make sure the best stuff goes on the air, rather than having somebody, having a small committee dictating everything.
Yeah.
I believe it should be a meritocracy.
We talked about this on the Saturday Night's Main Event podcast last night. Vince McMahon back in the day, he seemed like he would be staying up at night thinking about these storylines. Like with Hogan and Savage, where does it go? And where do we go from here? And how do we get there? And really like stressing to think about how they get there and loving when they hit a home run and the Vince now, I don't think he cares about the storylines until he gets to TV, and then that day whatever he comes up with, forgets about it until the next week. That's why stuff's all over the place. He just doesn't care long term about the storylines. He cares that day, and he just really needs to let that creative aspect go.
Stop rewriting. So, could you imagine if Lorne Michaels rewrote every sketch on SNL?
Oh my God, yeah, and imagine if is Lorne as old as Vince? He actually might be. He doesn't look as old as Vince.
Yeah, Lorne Michaels is 75 years old.
Oh, and Vince is what, 73?
I believe so, yes. 73 or 74. 74. So there you go. That's the comparison.
Lorne looks like 20 years younger than Vince.
Why are people saying like I'm burying Russo? I'm not burying Russo. I'm just saying that I think we need somebody fresh in this role. I want somebody that's not done this before at all, because I think we need new ideas with wrestling. Wrestling has changed, wrestling has evolved, and I think that the thought that anybody, just because they've done this in the past, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have the finger on the pulse of it right now. It's the same reason you see this with TV too. It's the guys that produce Cheers probably aren't the best minds to be producing a sitcom right now. Paul Reiser had Mad About You was a huge hit. Paul Reiser's last 3 sitcoms have flopped terribly. Including the Mad About You reboot, not doing well. It's like I'm saying I want somebody that's new and that's fresh. We need more people with more ideas coming into this business. This isn't just about having limited powerful gatekeepers. So by the way, this goes for Bruce Pritchard. This goes for Paul Heyman. This goes for anyone. Like, just because you've been doing this for a long time doesn't necessarily mean you're going to create the next classic era of wrestling. Because Vince Russo wasn't always Vince Russo, and that's when he did his best work. When there wasn't like this hype about it, you need somebody that gets in there, has fresh ideas. It's what they say about bands as well. The reason why most bands, their first album is great, you know why, Raj? Because they had their entire life to write that first album. You had your entire life to write the first album. You had 6 months to write the second.
I will say this about Vince. He used to do our Monday night podcast. And back in the day when he would give how he would do it, almost every time it was way superior to what was done on TV. So I do think he'd be an improvement. But I do see your point in getting some young blood, moving some young blood to the top and getting this product out of this stale shell that it's in.
I mean, I don't think the ratings could potentially even go any lower right now.
Every time I think that it does. So.
I wrote that first hour of Raw using AI predictive text. Like, I think, at that point, anything's a step up from this, but that's the thing. Like, they've got to do something different. They've got to shake things up. Now is not the time to stagnate. And in fact, I've been saying this entire time. The WWE should have looked at COVID, and no audience is saying, now is our chance to really experiment with what a professional wrestling show could be. And instead, they've just tried to replicate what it was. And the things that we've loved the most, the Boneyard match, Firefly Funhouse match, the things we've loved the most have been when they stepped outside of their comfort zone. And we need more of that, not less.
Need something. But then again, maybe they'll be back in arena soon.
Which, I mean, I don't know that that's going to turn around the ratings either.
No. I mean, it's still been going down every year. It'll just probably stop the bleeding some.
Yeah,
well, let's get through the show and we'll talk more about it. I mean,
the 6-man tag,
this goes back to Heyman.
I could do another 2 hours on this 6-man tag match.
Yeah. Tucker. We got Tucker's back. This is big news.
Tucker's back. It's huge.
Tucker. The heavy machinery reunited. Tucker returns.
And they teased it, Mandy bringing out the briefcase to Otis. Like, is he going to cash in on Braun for a hot second? But they were all raising their hands and happy, and they went off the air.
They shouldn't even tease the Money in the Bank cash-in without fans in attendance, because part of that is the pop, in my opinion. I don't know.
Oh, this is funny. Jules Slinger saying, I said, shake it up. Vince tried that. What Vince thinks is shaking it up, if it involves Vince, isn't shaking it up. How many things do you think Vince has shook up in his life in the last 20 years?
I think every time he says it, he means it that day.
Vince is still eating steak with ketchup on it. Like, Vince ain't even trying Heinz 57 or Sriracha. Vince doesn't shake things up.
So, here's a little weirdness, a little confession, if it were. You usually do them, and yeah. I'll do one. Back in when I was in middle school and elementary school in New Mexico, at the cafeteria they'd serve burritos with ketchup. And ever since then, if I ever get frozen burritos, I dip it in ketchup, and it's really freaking good. I don't do steaks with ketchup, but burritos with ketchup, try it. It's really good. Frozen burrito.
I'm a big fan of. I like the sriracha. I like the tapatio, or as I used to mispronounce it, the tapatio.
If it's a high-level burrito from like a Mexican restaurant, then yes, I'm doing a tapatio. But if it's a microwavable burrito, ketchup is the way to go.
You know what's super good, and this actually is kind of like ketchup. I've been buying from Humble House hot sauces. They make this ancho tamarind sauce. So with tamarind, you have like that sweetness.
Yeah. Oh, I know tamarind very well.
I've been having like this ancho tamarind and sriracha on my frozen burritos that I eat in the morning. It's been absolutely fantastic. Like seriously, like, and if you're someone has not experienced a good tamarind like barbecue sauce before, it is life changing. But it is that sort of sweetness and full bodiness with just the right amount of smokiness and heat.
You know what else is really good? All right. So let's move on after this. I saw it first thing. Ketchup mixed with mayo is good to go. There is actually a dip that we made with sriracha and mayo. It's a little bit of mayo with sriracha. What's that?
Sriracha mayo. In fact, if you're hot sauce averse, if you're afraid of any hot sauce, my recommendation, mix it with mayonnaise. I got some of the Last Dab XXX from Hot Ones. Mm-hmm. And that stuff is, I mean, literally fire. But I put just a little bit of that in with like a tablespoon of mayonnaise, and it's like the perfect amount of heat. Yeah. But yeah, that's the key. Ketchup and mayonnaise. I mean, that's just Thousand Island. That's the special sauce at McDonald's on your Big Mac.
All right.
I was very dismayed and disillusioned when I found out that was the special sauce on the Big Mac. That was part of my upbringing. That's when I really grew up and became a man.
Life can be hard sometimes.
Life can be. So, what else is going on in the world of wrestling this week?
Did we say who won? That's the finish.
Faces won. Braun, Heavy Machinery.
Who they beat? I already forgot who they pinned.
I'm gonna say Ziggler. Yes, Otis did the Caterpillar and the elbow drop on Ziggler for the pin and the win. For the, what did I call it the other night? The windfall. That's the win via pinfall. The windfall.
Let me run down this Backlash card. Well, we'll run down after Paul Heyman. All right, so Paul Heyman was removed as the executive director of WWE Monday Night Raw. Vince McMahon has apparently been very upset with Heyman. So basically, a year ago, when Paul Heyman joined, he basically told Vince that it's going to take 18 months to start building new stars, and Vince at that time went along with it. Since then, a year later, and this is also unfair because of COVID, but the last 6 weeks, 5 of the last 6 weeks have been the lowest rated shows in history. The 5 of the lowest rated shows in history have been in the last 6 weeks. They're doing about 1.75 to 1.78 million viewers a week. Again, it dropped a lot with COVID, but even before COVID in February, which was the first full month before the pandemic, they did 2.3 million viewers, and that was down 14% from 2.7 in February of last year. So, big drop year after year. Obviously, a much bigger since COVID, and I think Vince just finally gave up. And I think right now he's kind of in a panic. You saw it with the XFL. Instead of waiting it out a year, he just cut his losses. Basically, tried to get out of paying Oliver Luck. He so far has. We'll see where the lawsuit goes with the XFL. He fired his co-presidents before the pandemic. I mean, it's been a wild year. Vince is, I don't know. He just feels a little off his marbles a little bit. I mean, I can understand being unhappy about the ratings, but all the shows have been down. SmackDown has been down. AEW has been down. AEW just did their lowest rating, their lowest ratings this past Wednesday. Lowest rating in 18 to 49 and third lowest rating in overall viewership. So it's just, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. So Paul Heyman is no longer working there as an executive. He is still under a talent contract, and that's where that is right now. And during an investors call in in late April, Vince had said that the reason why Raw ratings were down was because of all the new talent. It's going to take time, but he was confident that they will rebound. But apparently, he lost his patience.
Yeah.
So a year ago, it was announced. It was in late June. Bischoff was taking over SmackDown. Heyman was taking over Raw. Didn't even last a year.
I like Bruce Pritchard.
Real quick, Bruce Pritchard now is in charge of both brands.
Which is crazy.
I mean, as soon as brand split started, I would say the steps. Like first, they start, merging the pay-per-views again, and then you start seeing people on the other shows. Then eventually, they just bring them back together, and I think you're starting to see that. I think the brand split will be a thing of the past by the end of the year.
Maybe. Looking back, yes, we had Bruce on this very podcast back in January of 2018.
Was it 2018?
January of 2018.
Oh my God, that feels like 5 years ago.
He's promoting and I like Bruce. He's very nice. I've always had great interactions with him. Certainly, I do a lot of business with his podcast on behalf of my clients. I think that SmackDown for me has been the better show, but again, now it depends on what Bruce does with this opportunity and what the impact is on the project. I'm going to be optimistic about it, but at the same time, again, we should be getting more voices, more people involved, and it's a question of how is he going to run this new creative.
And here's more of a fair comparison. If you could take 2 hours of Raw against 2 hours, of regular SmackDown, what's the better show? You take the two best, the best of Raw in 2 hours against SmackDown, and what's better? Because that third hour kills. In SmackDown, it would be the same way. The best thing for WWE would be for their ratings on Fox to go up, and Fox makes a big play for Raw when the contracts come up in, I guess it's like 4 years. And then if they do get Raw, then Raw has to go to 2 hours because of the local news. That's wishful thinking.
I really blame this on the heavy machine, or not heavy, the Viking Warriors, Viking Raiders. See, Matt's got me confused now on what their damn name is. The Viking Raiders and Street Profits in all these competitions. I think that was the final straw for Vince.
I wouldn't be surprised if Vince likes him.
Really?
Yeah. He likes that kind of stuff. He's like, ha, that's good shit, pal.
And the weird thing is, okay, on paper, that could actually be good, but the execution was so hokey.
It's not, it's one of those things I expected to be worse than it was. It's not good. There's nothing clever in them, and I keep hoping to see something clever in these, and there's not. But yeah, it's there's so many problems right now with all of wrestling. I know I enjoy AEW as well, overall as a wrestling fan every week as far as the presentation goes. But when I watch that show, I'm like, this is not going to bring in mainstream viewers or people outside of the wrestling bubble. This is, with all the goofiness, it's very contained to this audience. And
that's the thing about tonight. If we hadn't seen the Urine segment tonight, it's interesting that's the first shot fired of the Bruce Pritchard in charge of all creative era. Bruce Pritchard's in charge of everything. Opening segment, just bam.
This was taped last week.
Yeah, hopefully not a metaphor for how this is all going to go.
This was taped last week, but Bruce has been in charge of SmackDown.
Vince throwing a warm cup of urine in the audience's face. That's what wrestling in WWE.
Watch, that's probably going to be the highest rated segment of the show.
I will say this: they shot it, and I understand this is why they reshot it. If you look back at the HBK Vince Shane moment with that, the camera tonight was done. It was much better, presentation tonight. You go more clearly see what was happening, better reaction.
But the level, and it's weird saying it with Jeff Hardy because Jeff Hardy's a big star. But when you had Vince and Shawn Michaels in the ring, that's a different animal because those guys are epic.
What do you think they used for the prop urine?
It looked like beer to me, didn't it?
Nah, there was no
flat beer.
I mean, really flat. Even flat beer looks a little.
Just leave it open for half a day.
Probably not beer. That does seem a little weird. That
you wouldn't. Well, yeah, you don't
apple
want,
juice, food coloring.
Yeah, you could do that.
Somebody wants to give us an anonymous tip. Want to become my new inside source in the WWE? My DMs are open. Let me know what was used for the fake urine, or maybe it wasn't fake. That would be a rib.
Dun.
That'd be. Sheamus has got heat backstage.
Yeah.
Good. I can't believe we're talking about this. Matt really had something else going on tonight, right? He didn't just think I'm running a campaign. I'm not going to go on a podcast and talk about a guy throwing urine on another guy.
As soon as he saw the piss, he's like, I can't. I'm running for office. I'm running for commish. I can't do this.
Yeah. Because seriously, dude, I got to be honest, man. In terms of my career highlights, this ain't going on my reel.
And guys, feel free to send over anything else in the chat you want us to talk about. Let's go through these AEW versus NXT ratings real quick.
Yeah.
AEW barely beat NXT this week by less than 1% in overall viewers, 677,000 viewers. They were down 7% from last week, while NXT did 673,000 viewers, and they fell 6% from last week. So both shows down a lot from last week. But for Dynamite, it was their second worst, lowest audience this year, the third lowest in their history. For NXT, it was not the case. It was their 11th lowest, so it's on their lower end, but it's not in the top 10 of the lowest. Just barely out of that. 18 to 49, Dynamite scored a .23, down 21% from last week, and it is tied for their worst rating in that demo ever. And so that's the demo that they really have been clinging on to, is that whether we no matter what the total viewers is, it's the 18 to 49 demo that's important. And it wasn't good. NXT did a .16. They've had other shows do a .16, and they've had 4 shows that have scored lower. So even though AEW beat NXT, this was one of those weeks where it was worse for AEW. And again, I look at AEW, in my opinion, watching it, I find it to be the most watchable show in this empty arena era. But something's not clicking with AEW either. And when I do watch it, thinking to myself as a casual fan, because I have to almost get myself in wrestling mode because I've seen it all.
Did you see the Howard Stern clip that's been making the rounds?
I did, yes.
So Howard Stern loves Goldust and has some clips from an interview. I believe he liked when Goldust was doing a Tourette's.
Yeah, he doesn't love 90s Goldust when he was super edgy and everything. Yeah. He loved when Goldust had the Tourette's gimmick.
So Howard was saying, whatever happened to that guy? And then Robin, or somebody says that, he's in this company AEW, and Robin said, yeah, it's like a backyard wrestling promotion.
Yeah, they had no idea what AEW was.
No idea what AEW was.
And that's what I mean when I was saying earlier about getting out of this wrestling bubble, for AEW to get out. And I just see too much goofy stuff. And it's always good to have some comedy. But when you got Chris Statlander doing the alien stuff, I could just see a casual fan that watches football and basketball and UFC and then watches that and sees the alien stuff. And then you see the best friends hugging. You can have some of it a little bit. I think Orange Cassidy is someone that people will find kind of amusing. But when you got too much of that on a show, it's not going to draw enough viewers in. You need more larger-than-life characters and
it's actually
largeness.
Crazier. I mean, they're trying to have it both ways, though, right? Because here they are. Tony Khan is a sports guy, owns an NFL team. They kept talking, wins and losses are going to matter. We're going to have fantasy wrestling leagues. We're going to do all these things like real sports. And then at the same time, they have the larger-than-life characters. I think that AEW is still figuring out, what its brand is. And they're not committed to one side or the other. And like Mr. Miyagi said, middle of the road, squish like grape. So I think there's a lesson we can all learn there.
When they do serious, they do it better than anyone in wrestling. The Cody stuff is, comes to mind right off the bat. His stuff with MJF, his stuff with Jericho, fantastic. If they had more of that on the show, I think that it'd be awesome. But then you got so much of the cornball comedy, and I don't mean Jericho, because Jericho, when he does it feels like a big segment. It's not, because wrestling, there's a difference between Steve Austin doing comedy and Santino Marella. You can say comedy's comedy, and what about the Bushwhackers? Well, the Bushwhackers weren't on top or even close to the top. Steve Austin's funny. His promos were funny. The Rock was funny, but they weren't comedy characters. They weren't goofy. And you got a lot of goofy right now.
That being said, I think Orange Cassidy would have been a huge star in WWE.
We'll see. I don't think Vince would have gotten him.
You don't think so?
No.
For me, I mean,
I think Vince would have found it stupid.
Like No Way Jose or...
Yeah, I mean, just look over time who Vince really pushes. You know, Roman, Drew, Brock, Cena. I mean, you kind of get the guys he's going for.
Yeah. I don't know. It is interesting.
All right, guys. Fernando Perez, Backlash predictions.
Yeah, let's talk. Do we have a super chat? We want to quickly. Jules Slinger, $4.99. Where does AEW go with Mox after he beats Brian Cage at Fyter Fest?
So I think, first of all, I thought it was a big mistake to beat Lance Archer right off the bat and Brody Lee right off the bat. Already, I feel like they've lost steam. We talk about it all the time with Matt. It's like that genie in the bottle. When you're pushing someone as a monster and you see him get beat, it takes away that aura. And we've already seen that with them. I would like to see Brian Cage kick the shit out of Moxley, beat him. Moxley takes a little time off, goes to Japan if he can, because New Japan's opening back up, and then comes back. And then it's that underdog versus, this monster. I think it'd be cool as hell. And in the meantime, Brian Cage could, feud with, God, what other top baby faces do they have? Cody can't wrestle him. Jeez, who else do they got? People keep talking about AEW building all these stars. And as far as on the main event level, it's mostly WWE guys.
MJF.
He's getting there. He will be there.
Darby should be there, but Darby's not there yet.
He's not there.
No, it's a good question. It's a good point.
Yeah.
Sean Spears? No, but that's not.
No. Sean Spears has been a job guy. Okay. Well,
who else?
Beaten by Dustin Rhodes. Had Tully on his undies.
Who else is on the roster?
Really? Kenny Omega. They've squandered. I wouldn't say squandered. They could easily move him back up, but he's not the star he was. Before he signed with AEW.
I think Kenny versus Moxley sounds.
They could always do it. But Kenny isn't as big as he was coming off of New Japan. Adam Page, yes. Corey Springer, that's a good call.
Oh, sorry. Joseph Venditti, $5 super chat. Sorry.
Keep overwriting. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
Hands off.
What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Will Adam Cole go to AEW to join Britt Baker, or will he re-sign? I really hope not. Now, I just want to point this out. This has been my crusade on this podcast, Twitter, and life for the past 6 months. If you're talking about somebody renewing a contract, put re-sign, because he's not going to resign. Same word. As society, we need to really learn to differentiate re-sign and resign.
Yeah, so I think I'm hearing that Adam Cole actually did re-sign with WWE. So I don't think Adam Cole is going anywhere for a while. I heard all the Undisputed Era is the word that they all re-signed. So one of my sources had said that they thought that Adam Cole's contract was coming up this summer, but that is not the case.
Justin Lopez, $5, saying, gotta be MJF. He's undefeated, telling you MJF versus Mox at All Out.
Yeah, if MJF wins, I think MJF, they got something there. Absolutely. He's the one. He's the one I feel like they've really built. Him, Darby Allin to an extent. They've beaten Darby Allin too much, but... and Adam Page, they've been doing a great job since All Out. I think they've been doing a great job with Adam Page. I do like the stuff with him and Kenny Omega. It's brought Omega's down from where he was a year and a half ago, but it's brought Adam Page up.
So, Backlash predictions. Let's get into this.
Do it.
Apollo Crews defending the United States Championship against Andrade.
Apollo. Right?
Even now. So I thought Heyman, well, if they've already taped it, but I thought he was the guy that Heyman was pushing.
Heyman likes both of them. Heyman's pushing both of them.
Well, what's going to happen now?
So here's the little list of the guys that Heyman was pushing. I had compiled earlier. Hold on 1 second. So it was Drew McIntyre, Andrade, Angel Garza, Zelina Vega, Aleister Black, Apollo Crews, Austin Theory, Street Profits, the Viking Raiders, and Murphy, as well as established talent like Charlotte, Rey Mysterio, Asuka, and Nia Jax. So those were actually reported in the Observer. Sorry, that wasn't from me. So.
Got it. So Apollo on that. Now let's talk about the women's tag team championships. I'm a little tipsy. That's why I'm doing my radio voice. Bayley and Sasha Banks versus Alexa Bliss.
Tipsy, you say? Well, time for another. Cheers.
Bit of a lightweight, folks.
Yeah.
Corona,
One Corona?
One Corona.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a cheap date, Raj. That's all it takes.
Dude, I'm on like fourth glass of wine.
Yeah, well, you're ahead. I've been out drinking with you. I can't keep up.
Yeah.
Raj,
we got to get I Am Vish. Yeah. We missed his super chat last time.
Oh, sorry.
Oh my gosh. Book Raw for 2 months up to a pay-per-view. One solid rivalry. Choose two guys. Oh gosh. Name two guys and I'll come up with something.
I think Drew and Jinder is where it's at.
Well, Jinder is out. He's getting surgery. I said the thing with Lashley and Lesnar, that's very divisive. A lot of people loved it. A lot of people hated it. But I do think you could turn Lashley into the next Brock by having him get a dominant win over Lesnar. And then you don't have to pay Brock anymore. You have Lashley be that guy. And he's a believable guy. You've got him with MVP. He's got someone that could talk.
I think KO versus Drew could be good, but it really needs a story.
Yeah. All right. So,
I don't know what that story is.
Drew keeps getting beat down by. Hold on. Gosh, there's like no stars on Raw is the thing right now. So KO has been feuding with somebody, and who is aligned with a couple other guys who've been constantly beating down Drew. And Drew's beating him one-on-one. They beat him down after. Finally, KO makes a save. KO is on Drew's side. And then that builds to a pay-per-view tag match where it's Drew and KO versus these other guys. And then mid-match, KO pop-up powerbomb on Drew, turns on him. Mm. And then later he cuts this big promo about how he keeps seeing guys like Drew, got these guys with the physiques and what Vince always wants, getting these opportunities. He's hated Drew from the beginning. He hates everything he stands for. And that he can't wait to prove that Drew is a fraud and take what's his. And then, and then that builds to a pay-per-view match. You have them, not touched. Kevin Owens keeps getting out of the way whenever Drew comes around. If I had a little more time to match it out, but there you go.
What if, and I'm just going to borrow plots from old movies.
All right.
What if Charlotte feels like as a woman, she's not being taken as seriously as a champion and therefore disguises herself as a man and shows up as a new men's competitor and then challenges Drew and then ultimately wins the title and then reveals, it's really me, Charlotte. And it's essentially the entire plot of just one of the guys. And it's Zelina Vega.
The bra would give it away.
They really took. There was a lot of ace bandages involved in just one of the guys. Have you seen just one of the guys?
Charlotte's.
Have you seen just one of the guys, Raj?
I have not.
The reveal scene in that, let me tell you, I think Charlotte could pull it off. But no, and maybe we have a subplot where another woman's talent. Ooh, who's this new guy? I'm going to make the moves on him. And then they become friends. Maybe she gets a tag team partner at the end. Has to reveal I'm really a woman.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Probably wouldn't play as well as it did in the 1980s.
Probably not.
But very progressive.
It's Soul Man. Soul Man wouldn't play today.
If Soul Man didn't play in 1987, people picketed and boycotted that film.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day. It's crazy that movie got made. That somebody said, I've got an idea.
Yeah. All right. So
yes. Anyhow, what else do we got? Backlash.
Okay. What else?
The women's tag team championships. We think Bayley and Sasha retaining, or Alexa and Nikki winning them back.
I think it's got to be. I would assume that it's Sasha and Bayley retaining, but WWE they love to beat Sasha on pay-per-view, so all bets are off. But I would guess storyline wise, I would think it's Sasha and Bayley. And then at the next pay-per-view, they break up. They do their split and have a match at SummerSlam. But they've been teasing a Sasha and Bayley match for about 17 years now, so who knows?
Then, yeah, Bayley and Sasha need to break up and go one-on-one. I mean, I think SummerSlam, that'd be great, but I think they're going to save that for an audience.
There was that one match where Bayley turned on Sasha. Crowd went nuts. It seemed like the perfect moment. And then they did the counseling stuff, and then they're like just back together, and they just pissed it all away.
Yes, it's a theme. So Jeff Hardy versus Sheamus, speaking of urine.
I could see Sheamus winning this one. And then they got to do the return match with the step at Extreme Rules.
Will there be urine involved?
Yes, a urine on a pole match.
I could absolutely see him just like throwing like a cup of something at Jeff Hardy to get revenge.
Loser gets pissed on. They haven't done that yet.
Matt Morgan was smart to skip the night. Really dodged a bullet, buddy.
This is a modern day version of a Kiss My Ass match.
Drake Maverick will have to coach people. Like, here's how you do it on command in front of an audience. Drink a lot of water.
2 bottles of Gatorade.
I have trouble using the facilities if someone's standing next to me at a urinal.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I like those partitions.
I have a problem if there's a splash on the floor. It's like, do I want to do this? Do I commit to this? Do I go somewhere else?
I always think about that Seinfeld bit. What do you do if your shoelaces become untied and you're in a bathroom?
Ooh. See,
you just got to throw away the shoes at that point. Right?
I don't wear shoes with shoelaces anymore.
Big on Velcro, zips?
No, just the slide-ons. I'm too lazy to tie shoes. I don't have time for that.
I wear, like, Nikes when I go out and, like, walk or something like that. But no, for the most part, I'm a big fan of the Vans. Slip-ons, as it were. Asuka versus Nia Jax for the Raw Women's Championship.
Asuka. Oh, what am I even thinking about? I was trying to think of how they because I think they're leading to Charlotte versus Asuka because they've been building up that Charlotte's never been Asuka has ever beaten Asuka. Does Charlotte get involved? Actually, I don't think so. I think
Charlotte beat Asuka. Asuka hasn't beaten Charlotte.
Yeah. Sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah, but yeah, Asuka beats Nia clean, and then maybe Charlotte's looking on or something, but. That's the next big one, and those are the 2 best women in the company. That's a big match, and I like that story that Asuka, who's now probably the most popular she's been in a lot of ways, and hasn't been able to beat the heel, and the heel's coming after her. So I think that's a really cool story. Hopefully they don't squander it at Extreme Rules and keep it going until SummerSlam.
Hope not.
Yeah, and we'll take some predictions in the chat room. You guys give your predictions as well.
Absolutely. Chat room debating my Just One of the Guys remake in WWE. The time is right. I was thinking about that the other night. I made the joke on Twitter, the reveal of... why am I blanking on his name now? The reveal on NXT with the mask.
Oh,
Santos Escobar.
Yes.
Yes, I was thinking, like, I haven't been that shocked since the end of
Escobar is a little too on the nose.
What, you think? No, to me it seems that that's like the most 90s Vince McMahon name for a Mexican-American wrestler.
And El Chapo, could be teaming with El Chapo. I don't know, it's just a little too...
A little much.
I mean, yeah. And Medellin.
Yeah, well, now you're just talking about plot points from Entourage.
Yes,
like,
that's where I know my...
thing I know about Pablo Escobar.
And Scarface.
Do you ever think back to... Were we as a society just, like, fooled or under some weird spell from Mark Wahlberg that we, like, took Entourage really seriously for a good number of years?
Yeah, I loved Entourage. Like, the first, 4 seasons of it, I thought it was...
Yeah, but then there were, the last 4 seasons.
Yeah, there was that.
And
I still watched them. It didn't turn me off. Like, The Walking Dead turned me off. Lost turned me off. But I stuck with Entourage.
Oh, Entourage,
it wasn't as good.
When the movie came out, first showing of the day, I was there in the theater.
That movie sucked.
It was bad. Yes, Entourage. We were all in on Entourage as a society.
Was there an Eric Escobar in WWE? God, that sounds familiar. It is a cool name. I agree with you, Jerry. 85G.
Yes.
But it is Pablo Escobar's name. It's a very well known. It's there's some names that are just so iconic that when you take it, Apollo Crews is kind of one of those because it sounds too much like Apollo Creed, and that's an iconic character, and that's like Rocky Balboa or something like that. It's just too close. It's hard to take it seriously. Bulk Bogan.
The one that I thought was always the most interesting was Cassius Ono at the time when it was like, well, Cassius Clay and Apollo Ono for like that year where Apollo Ono in the Olympics like captured America's heart.
I see. I didn't even get that. I don't watch the Olympics.
Really?
I only watch pro sports like wrestling.
This might shock some people, so hold on to your seats here. I'm a big fan of figure skating, both men's and women's, in the Winter Olympics, and that's the entire reason I watch.
That's one of the things I watch too, because my daughters love it. It's cool.
I was a huge Johnny Weir fan. Got to see him skate live in Central Park once. It was fantastic.
No idea who that is.
You don't know who? Wait,
so yeah, there was an Eric Escobar.
You don't know who Johnny Weir was.
I don't know any of the names. When I watch the Olympics, I just watch it for the moves. It's like watching indie wrestling. Just do flips, crash through shit, and that's it.
Yes. Speaking of Olympic figure skating, friend of the podcast, Paul Walter Hauser was in I, Tonya.
Yes. We just did. We interview him.
He's on a lot on the Daily.
Yeah, we have him on a lot. He doesn't even like to talk about his movies. He gave us a little Cobra Kai exclusive. We do talk about Cobra Kai here. Here, let me pull it up. Let's get to the next match and I'll find it.
Speaking of Paul Walter Hauser's new film, The Five Bloods, is dropping on Netflix today. Spike Lee movie, another one with Paul Hauser. I'm gonna have to check that out this weekend. But yeah, Cobra Kai. There is some news. I've heard that as well. But let's talk Braun Strowman. I mean, come on, Braun Strowman versus The Miz and Morrison, like 2-on-1 handicap match for the Universal Championship. I'm assuming Bray Wyatt interferes with this somehow.
The Fiend? Yeah, maybe. It might be soon. I think The Fiend versus Braun is SummerSlam. We keep forgetting that there's actually another pay-per-view in between with Extreme Rules. So I think they do something with Braun and someone else for Extreme Rules. But yeah, for sure, Braun is winning this. And then, yeah.
And then Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship. Is it Bobby's time?
Man, in a weird way, sorry, I'm trying to find this Cobra Kai thing. My guess is Drew's winning. With how he's been being pushed, I think it's way too soon to beat him. But Bobby beating him does change things around. It does give a little life. The one thing with Drew that I've been seeing is that they're pushing him hard, but online no one cares. He's never trending. His articles, his interviews do the work. And Drew, I think, is awesome. I see why they're pushing him, but I think by not having the crowd reaction, it doesn't get other people to care.
Wasted title run, and Drew is very talented.
Oh, he's awesome.
I just think he has suffered due to the timing of all this, and then. Lastly, Edge versus Randy Orton. I mean, hey, it's going to be the greatest wrestling match of all time. Does it really matter? I mean, we're the winners. It's the audience that are watching it at home. Yeah.
You know what's funny is that they have Edge and Randy Orton doing media to promote this match. And they're both typing out how this can't be the greatest wrestling match of all time. It's impossible.
Even Randy's tweet about it was like, watch it, see if it's good or if we shit the bed.
Like, I'm having the greatest coffee of all time was Edge's tweet.
Sunday night might be the greatest podcast of all time.
This is the greatest podcast we've ever done on June 12th of all time.
Yes. I saw it first, speaking of figure skating, saying, love the movie The Cutting Edge, the best figure skating movie.
That was a good movie. I remember seeing that back in the day.
Dude, okay, here's what I want. Bring mixed tag wrestling back just to take the story from The Cutting Edge and tell that in wrestling. If I was in WWE Creative, that would be all it would be. Like, hey, remember this movie? Let's find a way to do that on WWE. It couldn't be worse than what we have now.
Yeah.
Cutting Edge. I should watch that again this weekend.
So there was a question about Nia Jax in the chat injuring Kairi Sane. Here's what Nia Jax told TalkSport, TalkSport. She did an interview with Alex McCarthy at TalkSport and said, I feel like every person or character would say, oh, whatever they say doesn't bother me, are kind of lying because I'm working for the approval of an audience. Whether it be hating or loving, I want their reaction. So when you're on Twitter and you see it constantly, it can definitely get to you a little bit. Wow, all I'm seeing is negativity. But when I step back and I actually immerse myself into the WWE universe, like when I get to see the crowd and fans, I know that's a small percentage on Twitter who have nothing better to do than hate on somebody. The fans in real life are so welcoming, so giving, and so understanding. I've had nothing but positive feedback from them, and I'm super grateful for that. So that was her response to the fan backlash over the Kairi Sane stuff. Look, I think Nia is just... she's stronger than she knows. She might not realize how strong she is. I have not mentioned Ryback in a while.
Oh, yeah. I see you've been very, very good. Are you guys on the outs? What happened?
No, I was just, we recorded, he's using StreamYard now. We did the podcast this morning.
Oh, there you go.
But he feels like that was Kairi's fault.
Huh.
Like when I watched it, to me, it was no question it was Nia's, but, I have never wrestled. And he was like, no, that was Kairi's fault, which, I'll take the wrestler's word for it. I've heard other wrestlers say no, but they say you got to brace yourself when you know that spot's coming, and she knew that spot was coming. So.
And if we learned anything from the cutting edge, you have to learn to listen to your partner and establish a rhythm with them.
Right.
Both in performance and outside of it.
Yeah, I feel bad for Nia because she does get a ton of hate. She does get a ton of hate. Her and Charlotte both, probably more than anyone else in WWE. And it sucks, like to open your social media and just get flooded with negative messages. It's too bad because she's not trying to hurt anyone. She's, but I do think she does need to be safer for sure.
I mean, I think that performers need to figure that out, and it's interesting when people complain about it. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, if you look at the track record, and maybe part of it also, it's just the conditions that they're under. I mean, how much time are they getting to rehearse these matches, rehearse these spots? Right. Are there things they could do to improve the working conditions that would make it safer for everyone? Who knows what it's like right now? Let's talk about that Cobra Kai news.
Oh. Hold on a second. We might have not done an article on it, and it might be in the interview. But he said the stuff in the new Cobra Kai season, it's well worth the wait. It's going to blow people away.
So they're not coming back to YouTube. They're shopping for a new home. Netflix,
I didn't know that.
So that's why the delay is. And the reason they're not coming back to YouTube is YouTube has said, we'll air it, but we're not renewing a fourth season. So, because YouTube's getting out of the originals game. Yeah, so whoever gets it, Hulu or Netflix, it's going to be airing it and then doing another season. They've always said all along they've had a 5-year plan. Now, it's funny that YouTube wants to get out of this because Cobra Kai, if you look at the numbers on that, compared to most Netflix shows and Hulu shows, like Cobra Kai is a huge hit. And right now there's not a glut of content. So I think it's going to get a huge money deal wherever they end up going right now.
I think so too. I mean, again, YouTube videos, you can't count them the same as ratings or anything like that. Because there's multiple viewings and stuff, and people, if it takes you 4 times to watch an episode, which if you have kids or a baby, it takes 4 times to watch a 30-minute show. So, yeah, it's not the same.
It is not the same. What else we got?
Tammy's saying it's WWE's fault for having 12 Kyrie versus 9 matches anyway. The biggest woman on the roster, the strongest woman on the roster versus the smallest woman on the roster. You gotta book what you gotta book. You gotta treat everyone equally. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Well, we shall see. You know what trope we don't hear anymore that we grew up with? Like people like saying, "Oh, I didn't know my own strength." No one uses that as an excuse anymore.
Yeah.
Growing up, that was everywhere.
I gotta say, I've never used that as an excuse.
All the time when I impress people with my feats of strength. Oh, I didn't know my own strength.
Yeah, it's never happened.
Literally, this literally never happened to me ever. I'm very aware of my own strength. In fact, I might be overestimating it a little bit. Have you ever tried to open like a really tight pickle jar? Like I thought I could do it, but no.
I'm aware I have no strength. But
I don't know. You popped out the guns here a couple weeks ago on the podcast.
I do have the guns, but it's Skinny Guns.
Skinny Guns. Worst hip hop name ever. Skinny Guns.
That's not a bad name.
I got one of those. We got one of those the grippy things for the jars. I use that all the time. And if I can't open it with that, or I get the knife and like start beating on the jar, and then I
have these pair of pliers that I've had since like college. This yellow pair of pliers, and I used to like when I was in college when I drink soda, I'd use like tighten it. So that way it stayed. Yeah. So I kept the gas, and I'd have to use it to open it too. So I had a pair of pliers for my sodas.
How broke were you in college? A 2-liter of soda has been 99 cents for our entire lifetime.
I'd get that. What was that one that had double the caffeine?
Jolt.
Yes. I'd buy those bottles like water.
I'm surprised. Yeah, you were drinking so fast. When did it have time to lose carbonation?
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's when I got I knew I made it in life. I was like, oh, I could just buy canned soda in individual bottles now. Living the high life, not having to get the 2-liter that I have to tighten, surgically, hermetically seal it every time.
Yeah.
Adult.
All right. Well, let's see. Any other questions you see? I mean, there's a ton in here, but let's a ton of comments. Not really questions.
I feel like we've really blown some minds tonight. We've talked about some important issues, made some progress on things.
Yeah,
really getting it done. But okay, 48 hours from now, we're going to be back to talk about Backlash. Me, Raj Giri, Matt Morgan,
Justin LeBar will be on this.
Justin,
Sunday.
Me, yes. Justin, and Matt. Providing there's no
It's gonna be a Justin marathon next week because he's taking over for me on Monday. So it's gonna be Justin on Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Oh, because I was hoping tonight. Originally, I was like, oh yeah, Justin, I want to get the Vince impression of Vince pitching the urine segment. So we'll have to save that for Sunday. Get Justin giving that to us. So hey, in the meantime, Raj Giri _303 on Twitter. I'm at Glenn Rubenstein. Send all your comments there, positive or negative. And actually, I have to say, Raj, I don't know if you get this. I get like the best DMs from our listeners. I get messages on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Like even if we disagree on things, I love our community. Thank you so much for spending your Friday night with us.
I to your point, you hear a lot about the negatives of social media and it being a cesspool and all the negativity. And granted, Kevin Owens, guys like that, what they got experience, way different. The feedback we get from you guys, it's always awesome. It's always respectful, and from the DMs, just the regular tweets. The gifts you guys send, it's awesome. We really appreciate you guys. It's you guys are the best.
And it's had an impact on this podcast because I think that we've all come out of our shells a lot more. We've all talked more about our personal life, whether it's issues with depression or addiction or growing up and things like that. Like seriously, like the communication and contact with you all and the connection. I value it so much. It's the reason why I do this podcast. So look, everyone, have a good Friday night. Have a good weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane. We're going to